Plutosphere,
connecting decentralized technologies to the global economy.
We're here to bring you the latest from the leading commanders in the crypto space.
So this week we welcome our guests, Conor Hyland, Chris Powers and Kevin Mathews, all recently graduated their Masters in Business Administration from the University of College of Dublin.
Welcome to three of you. So these guys were supported by Pluto on a deep dive into the DeFi space. The collaboration has resulted in the white paper, DeFi and Unstoppable Wave. So there's obviously ever-increasing interest in this sector. Pluto are delighted to have supported this research as a primer on DeFi for newcomers to the community.
So perhaps we could just start with giving our followers a little brief overview, those new to the sector. If you could just start by giving us maybe an introduction on your take of DeFi and how you came into the space. Maybe we start with Kevin, just because you're first on my screen.
Sure, yeah, no problem. Just, I suppose, a brief background of how I got involved in this space. So my background is in traditional finance. I have 8 years experience working in asset custody, financial services. But since 2016, I've been involved in the digital assets cryptocurrency space. And because it's such an ever-changing space, I wanted to learn like the next big thing that was coming along. So over those years, I kind of tried to deepen my knowledge of the basics. Bitcoin, blockchain, basic level 1 digital assets. And then when I left Citigroup, I went to an MBA, as you mentioned, in UCD of Dublin. And an opportunity came up to work on one of my passions, which was digital assets and DeFi, which I suppose is all the rage the past year. So that's pretty much how I got into it on a very high level.
I was a little bit later to the party, to be honest. A few years ago, I had friends telling me about the crypto space. At the time, I was still a bit hesitant and didn't really know a lot about it, like a lot of people still are today. But when the opportunity came up, like Kevin said, during the MBA, to really do a deep dive and really understand not only crypto, but DeFi, it was a really exciting opportunity for us. And being able to work with Pluto and have that industry insights and knowledge was also really helpful for us. So yeah, it was an amazing experience just engaging with lots of people in the ecosystem who were all very open to having conversations and really getting a wide understanding of DeFi. So yeah.
My background is primarily in healthcare technology, business development. So very different, which is why I wanted to go get an MBA. As part of the MBA, though, we were locked down in Dublin the entire year for the most part. So one of the things that we started getting involved in was crypto. And I had gone into Bitcoin a long time ago. One of the classic stories of, I'm sure there's a flash drive from 2013 somewhere in a dump that has a couple of them on. But hadn't really thought of it since then. So as part of the MBA, the three of us actually were also involved in the FinTech Society. So between kind of, I wouldn't say a side hustle, but in terms of we all collectively lost money on crypto and some DeFi tokens. And then also we're heavily involved in the FinTech Society. So when the opportunity this summer came to work with Pluto, it was kind of just a perfect match for us, just given what we've been doing the past year.
Chris, what would your take then be on the history of DeFi and how it's sort of grown as we've all grown with our knowledge? Obviously, this space is moving at lightning speed and we can't really keep up. But your take on the history and its growth so far since you've been a part of the space and lost your flash drive?
Yeah, I think, well, it makes sense though, right? With traditional banking, you have assets that you can earn interest on. So it only makes sense with digital assets, crypto assets, that you can borrow and lend those and be able to gain interest on it. What I am just shocked about is just to your point in terms of how fast it's grown from, I think it was $1 billion last summer. So when we got into our MBA, it was $1 billion. And then by the time we graduated, it was $100 billion. Yeah. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is when I'd first gone into DeFi, expert over here 1 year in, but I was so intimidated by just how fast it moved, just the amount of the commute, not really knowing where to coordinate. But as we got into our paper, I just found the community actually very welcoming. It was one of the things that would really interest me with DeFi is it's really not this thing behind the shadows, right? Like where it's like, oh, what's going on there? I don't know anything about crypto, so I don't want to get involved in it. One of the things through the paper that at least I found was the amount of people that were more than willing to hop on a call with us, how accessible some people were, even from some of the largest dexes, being able to talk to someone from the CEO from top 3 decks, just being like, sure, I'll hop on the call with you. If you think about trying to do that with a traditional bank, I mean, that would never happen. I don't think. So that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about it, was being able to interact with the community.
And I feel like definitely at the moment, it's part of that. You can speak to them right now because this is still a growing environment. In a few years' time, these guys are going to be uncontactable. I mean, we spoke with, do you remember Justin Bannon? We spoke with him weeks and weeks and weeks ago. And he was like, I've literally got people at my door. We're about to go live and there's people that I don't know. And I don't know how they got my address. And since then, he's moved into this whole, you can't contact me, you have to go through someone else space. So it is getting more and more limited, definitely. I think being able to just speak freely with owners of these incredible platforms, but we are lucky definitely to be in the zone where we can do it right now.
Yeah, you've definitely hit upon it at the right time, but you really have had a seriously super short, super sharp, incredibly deep dive into DeFi. How, sort of going through each of you, how was your actual first experience of actually diving into the DeFi sector?
It was an interesting experience, kind of slightly embarrassing when I look back on it, as to how naive I was really walking into it. And I kind of prided myself on having a few years experience in crypto. But like going into DeFi space was literally day one. I was completely new to it. So I started from scratch, as if, you know, I was walking off the street, didn't have an understanding, excuse me, of any protocols or anything behind it. And it was purely a case of Googling, okay, what should I do now? What should I do next?
What does this mean?
Like yeah, exactly. What does this mean? You're absolutely right. But from starting up a wallet, like from step one all the way through to the end, it was amazing how much I learned through each step. I mean, I suppose they say the best way to learn is through making mistakes, and that's exactly what we did. I mean, I would obviously do it different if I did it again. But it just shows one of the I suppose the conclusions we came to was that the space itself is actually quite inaccessible for the regular person, at least in its current state. So you know, it's still a young industry.
Definitely. I think that's what we're doing, though. We're still trying to build the backsides of it all, so people don't have to worry about that. At the moment, if you come into this space, you need to worry about what everything means. As you were saying, you need to understand, you know, what different words mean, different protocols, what they do. In the real world, you don't have to do that. Like, I have no idea how my laptop is running right now, and that is absolutely fine. It's suiting me down to the ground. I just use it. It turns on when I need it to. And that's really what people want from this space, and that's what we're building, I guess. So, Conor, maybe we'll turn to you. What is probably the most difficult challenges you had with this white paper?
Wow, challenges. I think the biggest one is obviously knowing what we don't know, right? Because from a white paper perspective, like, it's a blank canvas. And I think at the start we had this kind of idea of what the structure would look like and what we would need to dig deep into. But then what kind of evolved throughout the paper was slightly different to that. We would go down one road and then find ourselves in this rabbit hole around sushi swap bans, tokenization and DAOs and voting rights, and then have to pull ourselves back out again. Okay, now let's look at regulation. But like, regulation on its own was changing day to day. So we would write down a paragraph on regulation, and then a week later we'd be like, guys, this has now changed. We need to look at this differently. Now stable coin has come out. Something's happening with in the US, and it was just, that was really tricky to try and say, at what point are we going to say this was the moment in time, and at what point are we going to just keep editing it along the way? But it's just such a fascinating space, and because it's evolving so much, I think it was just trying to grab everything and kind of solidify it in one place without getting overwhelmed with the constant flow of information.
It's mad. You've mentioned how welcoming, sort of actually speaking with the industry professionals were. I mean, you've interviewed, I think, something like 40 odd, was it? Something about 40 different professionals, which is amazing. Do you each potentially have like a favorite takeaway, a favorite quote? What was your sort of personal
favorite person that you spoke to? Definitely.
You can't have a favorite. Granted, we appreciate everyone's time. But yeah, what was your highlights?
I think I'll do a Pluto plug here. I thought the folks from Pluto were very great to talk to. John had weekly calls with us, which really helped because we would kind of jump into the forest or whatever analogy you want to take, and then come back kind of battered and just be like, what does this mean? And then he would like walk us through everything. But I thought one of the great quotes we were talking to John actually about was around regulation. And we were thinking there's, the governments theoretically just with DeFi, you have both kind of like the protocols and then you have the UI to make up the dApp. So theoretically, governments could step in and make it more difficult for some of these companies to operate. But I thought the quote that really stuck with me was the more regulation that comes into DeFi, the more it actually may end up being more decentralized, because until there's really clear-cut guidelines for high net worth individuals, if they start receiving regulatory pressure, they may end up selling their assets, which in turn will actually be sold back to a larger group. So if you take someone who has a large holdings of, say, Sushi Swap, and they're forced to sell them, there's a good chance that multiple buyers. So in the short term, with the more regulation that comes in, it could actually lead to DeFi becoming even more decentralized.
Oh my goodness, that's great. I love that from John. He's doing he's obviously leading our Yop app at the moment, which is huge, and we absolutely love it. But John's knowledge is just so diverse. I mean, he's obviously been doing software and tech for so long. The fact that he's come from only, dipping and dabbing into crypto to now actually building something, he's adapted so super quickly. It's insane. Okay, cool. Who's next? Kevin, let's go you.
I mean, at the risk of, not sounding diverse here, I mean, John was brilliant to talk to. I mean, he I suppose because we had regular calls with him, it was great to kind of elicit his knowledge as well. But in terms of, I suppose, from a different perspective, we decided to try and cast the net as wide as possible. So talk to people in different countries as well. And then what was really useful, I think, for us was I suppose maybe the first point of contact. For example, we spoke to I think it's the North American Blockchain Association. One of the individuals from that, I won't name his name right now, but he was such a good person to talk to in terms of he had connections in all industries in terms of the insurance industry that we wanted to look at, about how protocols were underlined with insurance, which we thought was very interesting, and how even how enterprise blockchain was used in healthcare, etc. So in terms of those associations, there was the Blockchain Association of America and North America, and we also reached out to I suppose the equivalent over in Singapore and in Ireland as well. So yeah, I can't pick a favorite. I'm being as general as I can, but yeah, they were great.
Fab. Conor?
Yeah, I don't know if there was a quote that stood out to me the most, but there was one conversation that we had, Chris, with one of the gentlemen from Boston, and I think he just said, we were talking about how accessible it was for DeFi, and he just said, unless you have $10,000, stay away from DeFi, because right now you can't go in there. And that was probably about 2 weeks after we had all lost our money moving it around DeFi protocols and trying to swap it in Sushi Swap and bring it back out and put it into another
gas fee killer.
Gas fees, yeah. So we thought we could all play around with like $250 each, and make some money and come back out with a great story. And the only story we had was we now no longer have any money. But I think that was just an eye opener for somebody to say it to you straight out and just say, like, you can't really dabble in DeFi where it is right now today. It's not accessible to the average person, because you have to have a good bit of money in there in order to be able to pay those gas fees, but also to get a good API. And I think we were naive to that at the time. And now coming back out, I actually know, not a plug for you guys, but I think at this moment in time, for sure, you need somebody that can actually invest your money with leverage, and to go in with small amounts of money, it's really difficult until there's platforms that make it more accessible. But right now, there's still a lot of them are in the early stages of development, and I know you guys are working on something as well. But yeah, that was the quote that still rings in my head is, yeah, don't be trying to dip your toes, because it's difficult.
Yeah, you're either all in or you're all out.
Exactly.
And
we were all out pretty quickly.
All out.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. So do you have a sort of favorite taking each from the project? I mean, I know you've got some exciting news and exciting work that you guys have been doing ever since the project, but what would you say is your biggest taking from the project?
My biggest takeaway from the project goes back to earlier what I was saying, is that for someone who may not have a crypto background, it shouldn't be a deterrent. The space is extremely welcoming. There's multiple different communities and groups you can join. So I would just say, as this space continues to evolve, it's not something to be shy from. It's an extremely welcoming community, and there's some really excellent resources out there to catch you up to speed. And if you get into it now, imagine in 5 to 10 years where it's going to be.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And I've also just found out that you guys were approached by Blockchain Island. So I don't know who wants to take the floor on that, but what are you guys doing with them? Can you tell us about the work that you're doing there?
Yeah, I can take that, sure. One of the individuals we spoke to actually for the project that we did with Pluto is involved with Blockchain Ireland, and he was interested in the deep dive that we were doing into DeFi, and some of the I suppose the additional knowledge that we were uncovering, which may not have directly related to DeFi, but was related to blockchain, enterprise blockchain and such. So he asked us if we would contribute to the working group towards or a proposal for a national strategy, a national blockchain strategy for Ireland on behalf of Blockchain Ireland. So it's something that we are working on at the moment in collaboration with the organization. And I suppose the aim of the proposal and eventual strategy, hopefully, is to establish a hub for education for blockchain, for an ecosystem for enterprise blockchain and digital assets for companies to use to gain support in Ireland for that. So, I mean, it's I think all three of us can agree that although it's a young industry at the moment, it's kind of like each country is in a race to develop their ecosystem to support this new technology and businesses. So, it's something that I think we're all excited about at the moment.
Like the different governments at the moment are sort of like in a race to see who can get the support for the DeFi and understand it and necessarily ace the regulation. I don't think anyone realizes yet that they just won't be able to, and you won't be able to keep up with what's going on. So it's better to have people on the inside. We call them the white hats, where they sort of like look after you and your country or whatever it is in a mass. And if you do need help, you've got people there already that are sort of doing their FBI work on the inside. So yeah, totally. That's awesome. Fantastic.
Well, sorry, we just didn't quite finish what your takings, your favorite takings from the work on the project were. So Conor, let's go with you and then we'll come back to you, Kevin.
I think, there's a group of us now as part of the NFT group and the crypto group that are kind of working on a DAO. And I think DAOs are super interesting from a decentralized standpoint. I think they're interesting in terms of voting, in terms of smart contracts, giving everybody a voice. And I think the one takeaway from me is that I do believe that DAOs are the future. I still think that there's a bit of work to be done around voting rights and who actually has the main power. And we've seen that through some of these decentralized exchanges where, founders hold a lot of the tokens and therefore have a lot of voting rights and can apply pressure. But you will always see people will have influence whether they have the tokens or not, right? So, but I just think that it removes a lot of that friction in the day-to-day and things become a very matter of fact, which is great, but it's trying to get at the early stages, getting those like kind of legalities or those rules really crystal clear, because if not, then things get messy. But yeah, my biggest takeaway is that I do believe DAOs will be the future, and we're trying to put it into practice now. Hope maybe we'll be able to write an article on that by the time we're finished.
That's so exciting. So you're working in collaboration with the NFT guys from UCD as well?
Yes. So yeah, there's a group of us together that are building out a DAO looking at NFTs and crypto.
Very exciting. Watch this space then. I'm sure we'll have you guys back on to talk about your DAO. Amazing.
Looking for investment.
You go.
Right, put the right person on. Kevin, what's yours?
Yeah, I suppose mine, maybe following on from Chris's earlier, that it's an accessible space, and kind of following on from something we said also earlier on in the interview here, that it is tough to go it alone, I suppose, but the networks that are there, the accessibility, and people are always willing to share knowledge as well, which is a major difference I've found from, let's say, traditional business or traditional finance, where there's just an inherent maybe cutthroatness to it. But the crypto, digital assets, NFT space, I find that people are just more than willing to help onboard others on. And also, in addition to that, there is a lack of accessible onboarding material for regular people. So I think there's an opportunity there for people to develop that also.
Definitely. So that probably leads on to what is the future looking like for each of you. Maybe we'll start with Conor this time. I don't know if you've gone first yet. But so you're living in London now, you've moved from Dublin back to London, or newly in London. What's going on? What are you doing next?
So I was in Dubai for 8 years before.
I lived in Dubai.
Yeah, so came back to the cold weather in Ireland for a year, and then moved over to London. So I'm working with a company called Go Carless now, which are in the fintech space. We have a IPO valuation of 998 or something, so just below unicorn status.
Wow.
And growing really quickly. So it's a really exciting space, moving into open banking, which is huge in the UK. So I've seen myself with Go Carless for the next few years, and really try to scale and see if we can get some type of X in the next few years. Super ambitious company. So yeah, exciting times.
Awesome, fantastic, and potentially grow that pot so you can actually get into crypto. I guess that's another thing as well. When you don't have the funds behind you, you can't necessarily understand what all of these different protocols do unless you do it firsthand. So you're completely right. Once people like us have sorted out the accessibility, people are definitely going to be able to start getting more comfortable in the space, instead of having to just like put a lump sum down just to even explore, to get things wrong. So Chris, how about you? What is the future? Currently in Budapest, living the dream, all over the shop at the moment.
Going to Vienna in 2 days. But right now I'm working part-time for a fintech company, startup out of Boston called Nudge. So they're looking to secure funding in the coming weeks, which is exciting. So I'm not sure what the future holds. I think for me, it's a TBD. I'm enjoying traveling right now. I know I'll be back in the States for Thanksgiving. And then after that, it's kind of a blank canvas.
Love it.
As I'll either still be kind of doing freelancing work, or I would really like to stay or maybe get more officially involved in the crypto space.
And out of interest, what do your fintech companies view crypto as? Are they open to it, or are they really hesitant to move that way?
So it's interesting. Nudge works with wealth advisors. So it's a tool to help wealth advisors communicate more effectively with their clients. Most of their clients are within the United States. So as you know, the United States just launched the first Bitcoin ETF, was approved. So it's from a wealth management space. There's a lot of high net worth individuals within the United States that want exposure to crypto. So this tool, essentially, I won't do a complete plug for it, but one of the things that we're seeing more and more on is that more people want exposure to crypto, or at least understand if they wanted exposure, what that would look like.
Kevin, you are currently in a gorgeous home, but it's not your home. So what are you up to at the moment? What have you been doing since the MBA finished? and where are you going next?
Well, I think the 2 days after we completed the MBA, I started working for Coinbase. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm currently in deep into the crypto sphere and building out the ecosystem. So I mean, that's all I've wanted to do since in 2000. My first master's, I did my dissertation on digital asset custody back in 2018, and since then, I've wanted to be able to contribute to building the ecosystem. So wherever I am, either in the near future or far future, that's something that I'm going to be doing. But very happy with where I am at the moment. I mean, Coinbase is a great place to work. Very exciting. Lots of stuff happening there.
So much positivity. I love it. I love how many people are just like growing into this. It's insane.
So interesting. Is there anything else you guys want to add about anything, about the project? Any questions you want us to ask that we haven't asked?
Anything our followers should be following because you're going to start updating us on your lives?
Our DAO is called Bam Bam DAO. We'll be launching a website soon. And as part of that, we're going to continue to add more kind of onboarding educational material. So that will be our shameless plug.
Where does the name come from? Have you heard the song Sister Nancy, Bam Bam?
I'm not familiar with it. I was thinking.
Oh, it's such a good song. You should definitely Google it after the call.
When I think of Bam Bam,
what came to my head. It's like a little bit reggae, but you would love it.
I think Kevin has a better explanation of where it actually comes from. I thought it came from the Flintstones character. I don't know if you remember Flintstones.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. That didn't come to mind, but that is also fantastic program. Kevin, where's it from?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I think it wasn't me who came up with it. I thought it was Flintstones character too. I think it was Mathews in the NFT group. He came up with it. So I'm assuming he has some sort of in-depth explanation behind it. So we'll ask him. And
we went to vote, and we all voted. So the DAO is working. We don't know what we're voting for, but
it's a fun name, and that's what we want. Good.
Exactly.
Love it. And the other thing to say is that Plutonauts, you can actually view these guys' paper. The Pluto paper in collaboration with these guys will be sort of available as soon as this is out. So you'll be able to read DeFi.
What is it going to be like a Medium? How are you going to post the white paper?
It's going to be a white paper downloadable, and then there'll be Medium posts from each of these guys as well.
Fab. Thank you all very much for coming on. It's been really interesting chatting to you.
Nice talking with you both. Have a good one.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Plutonauts, for watching, and we will be back with more from the galaxy of Pluto soon. Don't forget to give us a like,
Give us a share
and subscribe.